business. Under new business, number 1, discuss action to adopt resolution 14-03 authorizing the assignment of contract rights from the Paulding County Airport Authority to the Paulding County for a taxiway improvement project and authorizing additional funding. Jason Phillips.
Commissioners, as you're aware, there is at the airport right now an ongoing construction project for both widening and expansion of the taxiway. So you can widening and extension. That would be putting that contract in the simplest of terms. As you're also aware, that project was intended to be funded through some bonds that are currently on appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. Therefore, the airport authority's use of those bonds, which were confirmed, validated by the Superior Court, those bonds are not available because they've not been closed, and we cannot close those bonds until the appeal is complete. There currently is at the airport a contract between the airport authority and the Astra Group for completion of the construction project. That project is ongoing. I'll defer to Mr. Jones and Mr. Swafford as to the construction details of that project. But since the bonds are no longer an available, readily available funding source, this resolution assigns the contract from the airport authority to the county. So essentially the county would step into the airport authority's shoes so that the widening portions, the entire contract would then be assigned to the county. I think most importantly, the widening portions of the taxiway project could be completed using the county as the driver of that construction project. And I'll defer to Mr. Jones if he has any additional comments on the project.
Blake, you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, sir. Wanted to just relay that the primary intent for conveying this contract at this point in time is safety related. Our parallel taxiway is currently not usable because of the demolition that has been done for the construction project. 4 out of the 5 connector taxiways are not usable, again, because of the demolition that has been done for the construction of this project. Currently, if an aircraft is going to either take off or land at the airport, they do have to back taxi on the runway, either to get into a takeoff position, or once they land, they have to back taxi on the runway to the one connector taxiway that we still have available and operational. So that back taxi, if it's to the west, is about 1,500 feet. If it's to the east, it's about 4,000 feet. So that is a considerable amount of time for an aircraft to be back taxiing on the runway. It is not the safest of conditions. In addition, if we were to have an aircraft that were to have a mechanical issue, which happens from time to time, aircraft are mechanical devices just like your automobile. So we do have blown tires. We do have things that happen to airplanes. So if we were to have a blown tire on an aircraft landing on the 3-1 end, we would really have no way of removing that aircraft from the runway because of the connector taxiways and the parallel taxiway being closed at this point in time. So this is a significant issue. It is a safety issue. That is the primary reason that this is being brought to this board at this point in time. If there's any specific questions about construction, contracts, anything else, I'll be glad to address whatever questions you may have.
I've got a question, Blake, about liability. If you did blow a tire and you ran into the hills that are there because of the demolition, is there additional exposure for the county because it's, the land is piled up and heaped up?
Well, in terms of exposure, that's probably more of a legal question than what I'm qualified to answer. I will tell you that we have NOTAMs, which for the pilots in the crowd, they don't know what those are, but NOTAMs are notice to airmen, and those are basically issued by us and are disseminated out through the FAA, which tells pilots that the parallel taxiway is closed and the connector taxiways are closed. So that information, we've done what we can do legally to cover ourselves on this construction. However, to leave it shut down in the condition that it is right now, Obviously, the longer you leave it in this condition, I think the more exposure we do have. I think that, I hope that all of you got the pictures of the current condition of the taxiway with the construction. I believe all 5 of you have been out to the airport to actually physically look at the construction. I don't know if this is,
Turn button on the side there.
It's probably pretty technical, like, you may not.
Will's a lot smarter than I am.
Just like
So this is a photo I just taken right out in front of the terminal building along the parallel taxiway. I'll just very quickly go through these just so that the public who probably hasn't had a chance to take a look can see. Again, another photo in front of the taxiway along the parallel.
And that's actually a 10-inch well, which it shows in the next picture.
It shows much better in the next picture. This is a look down the parallel taxiway. That is about an 11-inch drop off from the existing taxiway. Of course, the area that you're looking at is the widening, the 15-foot widening that will take place in that taxiway. So, for obvious reasons, the taxiway has to be closed. You can't have an 11-inch drop off next to the edge of pavement and have the taxiway open. That violates all FAA regulations and creates even bigger safety issues. Just a couple of more photos very quickly. Again, parallel taxiway, just looking in the opposite direction. And as you can see, we've had to barricade off all these construction areas, which essentially leaves us with one connector taxiway that's operational, and as I mentioned, back taxiing operations on the run.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Mr. Swafford, just for clarification, do you mind just going over the history of, we've got a 35-foot wide taxiway now and 50-foot wide connectors? Is that accurate?
That is correct. When the airport was designed and constructed, it was intended to have 50-foot taxiways throughout the airport. But as has been the case since day one when we broke ground on the airport, the FAA only funds projects on an annual basis. So as they fund projects on an annual basis, we have to phase in all of our construction at the airport, pretty much whatever it is. So the parallel taxiway was originally constructed at 35 feet with the intent of being ultimately 50 feet. And the connector taxiways, which are much shorter, those are only about 400 feet long, as opposed to the parallel taxiway being 5,500 feet long. So it was much easier to, from a financial perspective, it was easier to do those connectors at 50 feet originally. Also, we wanted to do those at 50 feet during the original construction so that we didn't have to actually close the runway in order to be able to widen those. Because if you're doing work within a certain distance of the runway, you would have to close the runway in order to be able to do that work.
Thank you.
I got more for you. Okay, I got more too.
Go ahead, Todd.
No, you got it.
Okay, well, that's mine. Now, the original contract or the contract with the change orders that are before us is that we'll have a new total of $2,985,939 in a nickel.
Yes.
But that removes totally the concrete portion of the extension. What's left in the contract is strictly the widening of parallel taxiways, the various other things that go along with that, such as the electrical striping, that kind of thing. Now, I understand that it does still include the electrical equipment that was purchased and is on the ground that we owe for, but no actual work on the extension is now any future work is part of this contract.
That is correct. When we started the construction project, the electrical contractor on the project ordered all the electrical components at the beginning of the project, and that's normal construction procedure because there's a long lead time on those items being delivered. That's probably the longest lead time of any component that we have for construction at the airport. You can't go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy these types of circuits and electrical components, so they have to be manufactured specifically for the project. So all of those electrical components have been delivered. They are all on site or on the contractor's yard, but we have certification on all of those. So all that does have to be paid for, even though we are pulling, as you mentioned, the concrete out for the extension, and will not be working any further on the extension until the environmental assessment is completed.
Okay, but even once the environmental assessment's completed, then there is not, we don't, the county, because again, once we vote on this, it's the county's contract. The county has no contract for that extension, and any work to be done on that extension would have to come back before the Board of Commissioners.
That is correct. There'll be a decision that will have to be made either to break that extension out as a separate contract and rebid it, or whether to change over this existing contract to put the work back in. As of right now, that work has been pulled out of this contract.
Okay. Now, I also understand that I think that you've been billed about $1,194,000 for work that's been done thus far. You've paid $1 million, so you're actually past due on about $134,000, which once we assume that contract, then that'll be the $134,000 that will then be obligated for.
That is correct. As you're all aware, the Industrial Building Authority and the Airport Authority were challenged with a lawsuit as to whether or not it was okay for the Industrial Building Authority to loan the money to the Airport Authority for this construction, which of course wouldn't have been necessary if the bonds weren't still tied up with an appeal. The judge denied the ruling for an injunction against the $1 million loan from the IBA, but the judge did request that further loans not take place until that case is heard. So that being the case, we did cap the loan from the IBA to the Airport Authority at $1 million and have paid out those funds.
Okay.
I have no doubt that something needs to be done to take care of the problem. So I agree with you, the Board of Commissioners, something needs to be done to take care of the problem. Because it's a serious problem out there now. You've got a job that's a quarter of the way completed, and there's a safety hazard in the whole 9 yards. I'm going to make no bones about it with my view, and I think most everybody understands my view. This project was started in June or July 2012. And we can hang our hat on confidentiality if we want to. We can try to until somewhere around November, late November of 2012 when the contract was signed. But I don't think you can hang your hat on confidentiality from late 2012 to when it was announced in October 3rd of 2013. And I personally feel like that part was done in secrecy. Now, I make no bones about it. We need to do something out there. But I don't think it's our responsibility as the Board of Commissioners to take on this debt and pay this out of general fund. I don't think that's what should be done. It was told to me that the Airport Authority has the authority to do what they did. And they did. But why would we keep continuing to do work when we don't have the funds to pay for something? Because we've been continuing the last few weeks to do work out there. So why would we continue to do work on that project knowing that we didn't have the money taken care of to do it? And I'm talking about you as an airport director, and okay? And I have a hard time. You know, I sent you an email concerning the bid process. And you basically, you told me that the FAA process for bidding was more stringent than us because we haven't taken this bid here. And that's another issue that I think with us taking this contract. And I understand that the FAA is more stringent what our bid process may be. But I don't know that I know what was done. I don't know how much I trusted that. And you and I just talked about that out in the hallway, and that's why I was a few minutes late. Okay? And so I want to trust what we're doing, but I have a lot of reasons not to. One reason was being left in the dark. I don't feel like that it's our responsibility to take care of the airport, but y'all, the airport authority made a lot of decisions to go on and do this the way they did it. And you didn't have funding in hand. And so now we're in a little bit of pickle and we're coming to the county to do this. I don't think that part's our responsibility. You went into a private partnership, right, with Brett Smith.
The airport authority, yes, sir.
Airport Authority, but you're part of that. And he said in the December meeting that we had the Cobb Chamber breakfast in the basement of the chamber in December. That if these bonds didn't come through, that he would step up and pay for it. He said that that's what partners do. That's what he said. After that meeting, I talked to him, and another thing that I'm having a hard time dealing with some of this is some of the commissioners and the airport authority has been pushing 2 flights a week. And Tommie, you've been pushing 2 flights a week.
That is the initial. His long-term goal is 25 per day.
And that's,
Right.
okay? But he told me what his goal was, over 1 million passengers a year.
Which
After that meeting,
Which works out
25.
21 to 25 flights a day.
right, which is not 2 flights a week, but we're selling this as 2 flights a week. And I talked to him afterwards concerning that. And he made it plain and clear to me, not only in that meeting, that he didn't care if we got the funding or not, that he'd step up to the plate and take care of it. So if that's the case, and I know we're in lawsuits, but we're getting in the middle of it here by stepping up if we do this today. I think he can step up to the plate and do this. Because he said
I'm gonna have to ask you to be removed if you do that again. I'm sorry.
that's what he said. And you were there. And so I think we need to ask him to do that. I agree there's a problem, and that part of it needs to be corrected because there's issues out there with that taxiway. And it needs to be taken care of. I just don't think this is the right way for us to be spending taxpayer dollars. And he said that he would do it. So I think we need to, and y'all need to, the airport authority, you need to ask him to step up to the plate and do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm okay with that process if that's what he wants to do. He's the partner that y'all selected. And I agree that we need to do something with it, but I think the answer is him, because he told me he would. So I'm trusting that that's what he's going to do.
I have a question on, Jason. You and I had talked about this, about the bid process, which we can't accept a contract that has not followed our bid process, which I understand you checked to see that they did follow the procedures and that all procedures were followed on their process that we would have required about accepting bids for this, correct?
Yeah, Commissioner Graham, my understanding is that there was an FAA bidding process that was required, and whether or not the county had been the sponsor or the owner or the airport authority, that it would have had to go through that FAA bidding process. And it is my understanding that it did go through that process, because that was one of the first questions that I had before I looked at it and thought, well, I believe this would be legally doable.
Okay.
Any other questions? Number 2, discuss action to adopt resolution 14-04, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Paulding County, Georgia, with respect to proposed financing of an acquisition, construction, extension, and improvement of the landing field for the Paulding Northwest Atlanta Airport through the issuance of one or more tax-exempt debt financing and for other purposes.
This is in simplest terms a reimbursement resolution. The bonds have been validated, the case is on appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. In the event the case is affirmed, therefore the validation stands, this resolution would authorize the county to be reimbursed from bond proceeds for the expenses for the project we just discussed. This resolution was recommended by our bond counsel, Jen Woodward.
So in other words, if we do the contract, the bond's validated, and we will pay from that process.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, something I think that we need to recognize that, of course, I know that the airport is looking for the FAA to repay those bonds over a period of time. I know that they have an agreement with a private partner to pay those payments if those funds aren't there. But we all have dealt with the FAA. I believe the first tract of land was bought in, what, 2006? 2007, we just got our money, what, 6 months ago?
First track was bought in 2005.
Okay. So it took 9 years. So we have to recognize we're dealing with the FAA. So when we put this money out, it could be years before we ever see it back. I just always want us to recognize that it's not something, I understand the FAA pays 90%, but the FAA is governed by people in Washington, and we know how they are. So it's our money, it's going to be out there for a while. Could be. Next, could be quickly, could not be quickly. Just recognize it could be a long time.
It could be. You know, one thing that we do have working very heavily in our favor is if our 139 certification is approved, that is our commercial service permit. If the 139 certification is approved and we process 10,000 enplanements a year, which is the 2 flights a week.
But if your 139 is approved, you can't do your 139 because you got to do the extension, because I ain't paying for the extension.
That's
I'll
correct.
pay for the mess, but I ain't paying for the extension.
That's correct.
So if you get the 139, then you got to find the money to extend it.
That is correct. That is correct.
From the county standpoint, there ain't no 139 because I'm not going to vote to extend it. I'll vote to fix the mess you got out there.
I understand completely.
And it's the system we live in.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have to pay the money. Okay?
That's correct. That's correct.
We didn't make the decisions. We have to pay the money, but my patience has worn very thin with that group.
Understood. The 139, assuming it's approved, which I see no reason that it won't be, and assuming we do have the 10,000 enplanements a year, which I have no reason to believe that we won't, then our entitlement from the FAA, an entitlement is the amount of money that we're block allocated. So we have 2 different funds that we receive from the FAA. One is our entitlement, which is currently $150,000 a year as a general aviation airport, and then we have to compete for other grants above and beyond that. With the 10,000 enplanements and the 139, our entitlement goes to $1 million a year. So it goes up by whatever that is, 750%, from 150,000 to $1 million a year.
And that entitlement is for capital improvements,
It is.
but it's not for upkeep, it's capital improvement.
That is correct. It's for capital improvements and, well, it can be used for maintenance. It just can't be used for operational expense.
Okay.
But it can be used for maintenance. So that,
Repaving, restriping, re-something.
exactly. And we're still just as competitive in competing for those other grants as well, above and beyond $1 million a year. So the amount of funds that we will have available to us will increase substantially.
You know, the airport issues, a lot of us, everybody in here knows, they go back to the 70s. And I wasn't here then. I sure wasn't of voting age. But some people say we voted on it. I don't think that's quite right. I don't think we voted on it in the 70s. Is that right? I think what happened was they wanted to put it on the ballot, and there was so much heck raised that it never got to the ballot. So in a sense, the people that were opposing it said no. And then we put it on the ballot in '99, all right? against the airport, and we are, guys, we are working on the reservoir, Mike, okay, Michael Carter, make that clear. But we got the airport, and I'm okay supporting General Aviation Airport, because from day one, that's what you and the chairman of the Airport Authority today, back in '04 said, and that's what past elected officials promised, that it would be no commercial, general aviation only. And I can support the things that we're doing out there at the airport. We need jobs, we need to bring in things, but that's the same thing that we said when we built it. When you built that airport, and you got up there in '04, that's exactly what you told everybody. Jobs, industry, bringing this in. And you know, the people that didn't want it, you got people that didn't want it, but you also got people that support it. You got everybody that wants the jobs. But for us to go and put in, as I've said before, the commercial piece of the pie, and y'all to do it the way you did it. I asked Brett Smith in December at that same breakfast. He said that it really didn't make a hill of beans, basically, about the commercial end of it. He could do everything without it. And I said, then why don't you take it off the table? Because everybody will probably, for the most part, everybody will be fine with everything that you're doing, except for the commercial piece of that pie. So take it off the table. So I'm asking today again, I'm not okay with it, because leadership in this county, leadership on that airport authority, I've talked to past commissioners, recently past commissioners, past chairmen, that said the people were told general aviation only. And if we can do everything we need to do out there to bring jobs and be successful without that piece of the pie, which is what Brett Smith told me in the meeting and face-to-face after the meeting, then I think it needs to be taken off the table. I think as investors right now are so frustrated with what's going on, they don't want him to spend another dime right now. And that's why he hasn't stepped up and offered to do it. We should not be funding this. I agree it needs to be fixed, but it wasn't our doings. And I don't mean this to be elementary, but this is like telling your teenage boy not to do something. He still took the truck out and did what you told him not to. And now as a parent, you got to fix it. And I don't agree with us fixing this. You got a partner that you're partnered with, and he needs to step up to the plate and do it. I think we need to table this, and I think we need to go back and ask Brett Smith to step up to the plate and do what he needs to do to put this back however we need to do it. Whether it's finish the project or put the dirt back and make it safe. And I know that would be losing money on stuff that was already done, but it's not our place to take taxpayer dollars and wait for this. And it's like Tommie said, he's not even willing to finish up the extension. So I'm asking y'all to get rid of the commercial part of this. Get rid of it. We've told the people, some of these commissioners sitting here have told the people that we would not turn this into commercial airport. And trying to sell something that's 2 flights a week right now, when we know darn well that what he really wants is 20 to 25 flights a day, is not what's going to be good for our community. It's not. And we can hang our hat on jobs, we can hang our hat on whatever we want to hang our hats on. But it's not going to be, you know what I'm afraid of? We built and built and built homes. And this county has built, and we've always been considered a bedroom community. And I understand, completely understand, that we need to work towards bringing jobs. But what I'm afraid at the end of the day, what I'm afraid is going to happen is we're not going to be successful at bringing jobs, and we're going to take our eye off the ball as being a good quality bedroom community. And 20 years from now, I'm going to be living in a county, and so are y'all, where we weren't successful with either one, and we took our eye off the ball into someplace we don't want to live. And that's not what I want. I love this county. I'm asking you again, take commercial, take it out. He said he don't need it. just take it out. And everything else, we can work together as a team, come together united, and do what's good for this community. Our community deserves us to be united. It deserves every one of us to work together for the same goal, but not when we deceive and we do things behind closed doors and we don't do what's right for our community. The promises were made and the promises were broken. I'm asking us to fix it.
Let me just say something. From what I hear you saying, Commissioner Pownall, is if Brett Smith, Propeller Investments, were to extend the runway with their money, we get to 139, which is almost inevitable, then commercial aviation would start because Propeller Investments did it rather than Paulding County or through a bond collection of money. So commercial would happen anyway. Now, I think everybody in the room knows that I'm for the airport, and I think if you really study and read things about what a commercial airport on a low scale, I don't know where you get 20, 25 flights a day. That's just a statement that's gone on the TV and is not accurate. So working 4 to 5 flights a day is the ultimate goal that I've ever heard anybody that's in leadership at the airport state. So I see a contradiction there. If you're going to let Propeller Investments do it, you're going to have the extended taxiway and you're going to have the commercial service in here anyway. Again, if you go look at the video, Georgia Airports Means Business, you see the amount of jobs, you see the amount of returns, so that we're not all paying so much tax dollar out of our home, our property tax liability. And you know, I would like to see one of my granddaughters, and I've got many of them, work in aerospace out there. And I personally don't think it's going to happen if we take a stand back, let's don't get involved, let's don't take any risk attitude.
Well, to clear up, I'm not for anybody, whether it's us or Brett Smith, extending that and bringing in commercial, period, cut and dry. I'm not for it. I'm for him stepping up to the plate and finishing what the court system said that we could do, and finishing the widening of the taxiway, and him pay for it, because he was going to pay for the payments on it anyway if we had got the bonds, is my understanding. And Dave, you and I are friends, but the bottom line is, it's not just out there. Brett Smith said it on video. Tommie knows what the projections are, what their goal is. It's 1 million passengers a year. It's 20 to 25 flights a day. That's
But hang on,
what
hang
he wants to be
on.
successful.
1 million passengers a year is 2 flights a day, is all that.
No, it's not.
No.
No, it's 13 flights a day, because when you say 1 million passengers, it's actually 1 passenger when the plane leaves and comes is 2. It works out to 13 a day and 1 million a year is what it works out. Actually less than. So
Depends on how big the plane is. Not trying to be elementary.
I mean, there are
Depends on
100
how full it
passengers,
is.
100 passengers, you do the math. Okay, you take 1 million divided by 2, that's 500,000 embarkments, as they call them, okay? Divide that by 100 and divide that by 365, it comes out to 13 a day. The airport that Dave and I visited, which was Asheville, one of them was Asheville, North Carolina, they had 21 flights that day. I mean, it's very low key, and yeah, long term it would be a huge success, but it'll take years to get there. And I understand your frustration with the process, where it is, and far as they want the airport authority to do these things, but what's before us is actually either we pay for it or not. Now, you know, whether we can get the airport authority to do something different, I don't know. My experience in dealing with the airport authority and the IBA is the only thing we have control over is at budget time. Okay? I mean, so I appreciate it, but right now I don't know that you're going to fix that problem at this meeting today.
Well, and all I know is I don't have very many places to try to do it. And you and I have talked plenty of times. I don't want anybody to think that Tommy and I haven't talked. We've talked plenty of times on these issues. Mr. Smith said he would take care of the payments on the bonds. He also said he would take care of paying for the work done if we didn't get the bonds. We haven't got the bonds. Let him take care of the work that the court system said we could do right now. Let him do it, not us.
The court system is just dealing with appeals. Otherwise, it would already have moved forward.
Well, then the FAA has come to an agreement, and this part of it we can complete. Is that right? Am I correct on that?
Yes. So it's all part of the original environmental document.
That's correct. We can complete the widening until the environmental assessment is done. Once the environmental assessment is done, we'll be able to complete it.
And the bottom line with me is this, and I know I agree to disagree. I want to get united. I want us to head in the same direction. But I don't care how many jobs you hang your hats on. I don't care how many jobs you do and what companies you think you're going to bring in here. I don't care. You do not break a promise to your citizens and sell out your people on the hopes of bringing in jobs, because I heard that in '04 and we hadn't done it yet. We have not done that yet. There's no success story that we've had with bringing jobs out there at the airport yet. Can you disagree? As of right now, there's no, and I'm just asking again, cut out the commercial piece of the pie. It's been, '04 was 10 years ago. Cut out the commercial piece of the pie and let's do what's right for our community. And then if you want to build on that, and you want to bring it before the people and put it on the ballot, then bring it before the people and put it on the ballot. And if they get the commercial, they get it, and if they don't, they don't. But that's where my heart's at.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, with your permission, can I restate the status of the various pieces of litigation? Yes, so everyone is clear. There are 3 pieces of litigation. First, I'll tackle the one involving the environmental assessment first. This was an action brought by residents of a few residents of Paulding County against the Federal Aviation Administration. It has been settled. There is, as a part of that settlement agreement, to do an environmental assessment. That environmental assessment is for various components of construction. However, the widening of the taxiways from 35 feet to 50 feet is not a part of that settlement, and that is really the primary purpose of this assignment, is to get that component done. Second piece of litigation is a lawsuit to get by a few citizens of Paulding County against the Industrial Building Authority and the Airport Authority to stop the $1 million loan that was made by the IBA to the Airport Authority. The plaintiffs sought an injunction preliminarily. That was denied by the court. There is presently a final hearing that will be scheduled sometime in the future. That case is ongoing. Finally, there's validation of the Airport Authority bonds. The Superior Court validated those bonds. The Superior Court, in its order, gave the green light that those bonds be closed for the purposes of this project. The plaintiffs or the petitioners or the interveners in that case appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court. That appeal is pending. It is because of that appeal right now that those bonds are unable to financially close to provide the funding. And that's the status of the various pieces of litigation.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say one more thing. Just so that both sides be balanced, and I thought about saying this the last couple of months. I worked for the Office of Air Transportation for many years. I managed it. Our primary passengers were economic development. And this is due to the secrecy thing. Confidentiality is irreplaceable. You don't have anything happen unless you have confidentiality. We could not even put the name of the companies, the passengers from the companies that were interested in coming to Georgia on the manifest because it was that confidential. And if word got out that they were being exposed to the media and to come into Georgia, they might just decide that they were interested in going somewhere else, and that happens a few times. Bass Pro Shop was 24 hours from not coming to Macon because that leaked out. So I think it's a very strong point that unless economic development confidentiality is maintained, then things aren't going to happen in this county. There's no possibility. To get consensus of everybody in this county, it will never happen. Just one other thing, I try to get on the phone at night and call constituents, 2 or 3, and spend about an hour on the telephone. And I've had KB and one other constituent that were against growth and development at the airport. And that's talking to 200 or 300 people over the last few months.
Thank you. That's the conclusion of our regular business. There's no executive session. We do have citizens wishing to speak. Mr. K.V. Coggins, the airport. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah, it's quite interesting meeting. Mr. Chairman,